Semi-retired Bob, I appreciate you being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, also a little about where you're from, and how you got into this carnivore space, please.
Okay, I'm originally from Southern Ohio, and now I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and very soon I'll be living in the desert of West Texas.
Wow.
But to truly understand how I got to where I am, we have to go back to 1983 when I was kicked out of the Army because I have gout. My doctor in the Army plus my private physician when I got out of the Army both handed me the same handout that said, if you want to keep your gout under control, this is what you eat, this is what you don't eat. And the main things that you're not supposed to eat are meat, primarily red meat. If you're going to have meat, have a palm-sized piece of chicken or fish a couple of times a week, and that's all. So I proceeded to follow their instructions and move through my life. And all that did was about 15 years ago, got me diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. After that, I tried to combine the gout diet with the diabetes diet, and that continued on until 7 years ago. I had a triple bypass surgery.
Wow.
I was 100% blocked in two of my coronary arteries, and another one was 99% blocked. I was literally 1% away from just dropping over dead. And I have tried, we knew as a fact that all you had to do to get your weight under control is to eat more and eat less and move more. That's just the way I was raised, and we never really questioned our doctors. I'm in that age group that, doctors were this thing on a shelf with their long white lab coats, and they were the authority. So whatever your doctor told you was what you did. So after my triple bypass surgery, I could not go back to driving a truck, which is where the semi-retired Bob comes from.
Okay.
I had to sell my truck, could no longer get DOT certified because my sternum deformed after my surgery. And a doctor has to sign off that your chest is 100% healed. So that couldn't happen. And it worked out okay because my mom got sick and I went down to New Orleans to take care of her for a year before she got so bad that we had to put her in a home. We moved her back up to Ohio. She's actually in a very nice place about a mile from my sister's house in Western Ohio. But from there, I went down and lived in my camper trailer, which is just a converted cargo trailer, in a friend of mine's parking lot at his church that he pastors.
Oh.
And I was there in North Carolina within a half hour of some of the most beautiful beaches in the world and hadn't seen any of them because I couldn't get out of the trailer. I was about 340 pounds. I had spinal stenosis. I had arthritis. I had type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, chronic kidney disease, and just too many things to mention. My blood pressure was through the roof. Even with 3 medications, my blood pressure on an average day was between 180 and 190 over about 120.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there in my trailer, basically waiting to die. And I turn on YouTube. I've always been a traveling tourism, photography, camping, off-grid living, that type of a consumer of YouTube videos. And I do believe that God reached into my computer and said, this is the video you need to see. Because there on my screen that day was a video by Dante Ferrigno called 125 Days on the Lion Diet. And the before and after picture that he had on his thumbnail looked impressive. So I clicked on the video and watched it, and very soon realized, but I kept watching because he's an interesting guy, but I can't do his diet because I have gout. I at that point had known for 40 years that I can't do that because meat causes gout, plain and simple. But because I had watched that video, I got another video suggestion for this weird country doctor in Tennessee named Dr. Ken Berry. And I thought, well, okay, I'll check him out. And he kind of speaks my language because I was raised in the northern Appalachian Mountains and he was raised in the middle of Appalachia. So I understood him and he kind of resonated with me. But again, I can't do the diets he's talking about because I have gout. I got a notification that he was going live. So I went to his live stream thinking, oh, I'll ask a question. And I, of course, got there and realized, oh my gosh, there's already 1,500, 2,000 people here waiting for him to go live. I'm never going to get a question answered. But because I was there, I went ahead and typed in my question that basically said, I have gout. Is there a version of this diet I can do? And if I'd known it was going to be so successful, I would have written the girl's name down. It was either Paola or Mitzi, because those were the two female moderators that he had at the time. And one of them sent me back a message that said, Bob, eating meat does not cause gout. Here's a link to one of Dr. Berry's gout videos. So I didn't even stay for the live stream that night. I went right over and started watching his gout videos. And I'm like, well, this guy's crazy. There's no way. Right. I've known as fact that meat causes gout. But I watched more and more of his videos and then decided, I have been following doctor's advice for 40 years. And where am I? I'm sitting right near a beach that I haven't been able to go visit because I'm basically sitting here waiting to die. So, okay, I'm going to give this thing a shot. Now, I was in the process of loading up to drive back to Ohio to visit my sister and my mother, and then on home to Omaha. So I thought, well, I can't do it this week because it wouldn't be fair to my sister to call her up the day before I get there and say, hey, I'm changing my diet. You have to go back to the grocery store and buy more stuff. So I decided that I was going to start. I was planning on driving home on May the 8th. So on May the 8th, I got home. And on May the 9th, the day before my 59th birthday, I went straight up carnivore. Now, I don't recommend going straight from a standard American diet to a carnivore diet in one shot. Because I will tell you that I had many of the issues that people face when first starting a higher fat diet where, well, let's just say I couldn't get very far from the bathroom for several weeks, and we'll just leave it at that. But again, if I'd known it was going to be this successful, I would have written that girl's name down because since then, I was taking 13 pills in the morning and 9 at night, plus pain pills throughout the day.
Wow.
And now 2.5 years later, I take no prescriptions. My type 2 diabetes is gone. When I was originally diagnosed, my A1C was 10.6. The last time I had it checked, it was 4.8. My arthritis, back before I started this journey, this was about the best fist I could make. And now my hands work just fine. I say that my spinal stenosis is about 98% better because if I turn too fast, I will occasionally get a little twinge in my back, but it's not the debilitating pain that I used to get. My blood pressure is absolutely normal. I checked this morning because everybody always wants to know what your blood pressure is, and it was 112/64 on 0 medications. My fatty liver is gone. My chronic kidney disease is gone. I've lost a little over 150 pounds, and I can't tell you how much my life has changed. It's just completely different now.
Have you been back to your doctors?
I went back to my doctor at about the 6-month mark, and all he was interested in talking about was how my cholesterol is a little high and I should be taking a statin. I needed to get back on my statins or I was going to have a heart attack to go along with my triple bypass surgery. I have not been back to see him, but I have seen my cardiologist several times because I've had triple bypass surgery. I'm not an idiot. I am going to go see my cardiologist. When I got out of the hospital from the triple bypass, my ejection fraction was 38, which, as you know, is very, very close to full-blown heart failure. And at my last visit, my ejection fraction was 58.
Amazing.
Which puts me back in the normal range. It's low normal, but it's much more normal than it was. My CAC score from one year to the next has gone down by, now not a lot, by 7 points, which isn't a lot. But if you factor in that most people with heart disease, as bad as I have heart disease, their CAC score goes up about 10% every year. The fact that mine has gone down is a huge win. So I do still go see my cardiologist once a year. When I first got out of the hospital, he said, now we're going to see each other every 6 months till one of us dies. And 2 times ago, he said, yeah, I'll see you next year. You're doing great.
What are your thoughts on the doc that wasn't impressed by, or what did they say about your weight loss and all the drugs you're off, and the fact they want to put you back on a statin?
He was not interested at all. I had even printed out some of the things that, because you know Dr. Barry always puts links to papers underneath his videos, and I had printed some of those out, primarily the ones about why I wasn't taking a statin anymore. And he just didn't have any interest in finding out at all. So I just said, why don't you go ahead and package up my records? I'll find myself a new primary care physician. And that was a couple of years ago, and I have not been back to a primary care physician since. One time when I was back in North Carolina, I did a own your labs thing and got my own lab work done at a private lab just to see where I was at. And I just don't feel the need to go back to a doctor unless something hurts like I need to go see a doctor for.
Your experience in the military, what did they feed you there? And how do you think that might have also contributed to your diseases and disabilities and damage?
It's hard to remember back that far, but I can tell you that I was in one of the units that we actually got fed very well. Now, when I say fed very well, we most of the time had pork chops with the sides for lunch and some kind of steak for dinner, but all of the sides that went with it. It's not like you got a great big huge pork chop or a great big huge steak. And of course, breakfast was whatever you wanted to grab off of what they had out, you know, a lot of donuts and pastries and that kind of stuff. But I don't think the military at that time was nearly as bad as what I'm hearing it is today. And I think I was probably building up to a gout attack before I got into the military. And, you know, if I had known what it was then, I would have just suffered through the pain and stayed in, because I was come to find out later, I was less than 3 weeks away from getting full disability from the Army, but that didn't happen.
Well, this is our system, isn't it? Tell us a little bit about what you do eat, how often you eat, how much you eat, and how that's helping you.
I'm still basically a pig. I eat a lot. On average, because I'm a retired truck driver with bills to pay, I primarily eat ground beef and eggs because that's what is in my price range. And I will have between a pound and a pound and a half of ground beef and 6 to 12 eggs, all in one meal. I eat one meal a day, usually about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I've been doing that for about a year and a half now. I used to eat, some steaks and some roasts and things like that. But when I decided I was healthy enough that I was going to go start my own homestead, I needed to save some money. So I got rid of the roasts, got rid of the steaks, and I just basically eat ground beef and eggs. I will occasionally throw some pork roast in there because pork here in Nebraska is very cheap. And I will occasionally have some chicken because I just got a big tray of chicken thighs for $1.19 a pound.
Wow.
And when I have less fatty meat, I add butter, lots and lots of butter, because I like to keep the fat content up. But so I eat probably what would equate to 2 to 2.25 pounds of food every day.
Do you have an estimate about how much you spend a day on food?
I've made several videos about this. I do it at about $6. With the recent increase in eggs, I haven't recalculated. So it's probably up to $7 a day now with the increase in eggs. But on average for the last year and a half, I spent between $5 and $6 a day on food.
Are you starving?
Oh, no. I eat most of the time. I leave a little bit on my plate because that is a lot of food. And as yourself and Dr. Barry and all of the doctors that I follow, eat until it doesn't taste good anymore or eat until you're comfortably stuffed. But I don't usually have much left over. But I am full by the time I get done with a pound and a half of beef and 8 eggs.
Well, tell us a little bit about your from semi-retired Bob to off-grid carnivore and how that's going.
Yeah, well, I'm supposed to be in Texas right now. I decided that, I've always wanted to do a homestead kind of a thing. So I'm healthier now than I've been in 20 years. And I was watching some of the off-grid stuff that I've always watched and thought, I can do this. So I went to a broker and bought a piece of land that I was going to go down this winter and work on to start my homestead project. I got there and the roads that you could see in the other picture that I used to have weren't actually there. Okay. So it would have taken several $1,000s just to get a driveway cut into the land. So I came back home and called my broker and we did a land swap. The piece of land you see behind me, we actually have property owners. They don't call it a homeowners association, but it's a property owner's yearly fee. And that yearly fee pays to maintain those roads you see in the picture. So I know when I get down there this fall, I will actually be able to get to the land because the roads you see actually have names. It's just something I've always wanted to do. And I think I started to tell you where Semi-Retired Bob comes from. I could not get recertified to drive a truck after my heart surgery. And because my sternum deformed, and my cousin, brilliant wit that she is, said, well, now that you can't drive your truck anymore, does that make you semi-retired? And that sort of stuck. And I am now semi-retired, the off-grid carnivore, getting ready to go. I'm going to live completely off-grid. Obviously, there's no electric lines in the photo. There's no water lines in the photo. And I'm really looking forward to it. I did have to push it back a year with the land swap because I spent most of my disposable income getting down there and back. So I decided to just take another year and save as much as I could.
What would be your recommendations, advice for someone who's suffering like you've been? And let's see, you're 50,
I'm now 61, almost 62.
62, and you started carnivore how many years ago?
It'll be 3 in May. So I'm at a
Wow.
little past the 2.5 year mark here.
Right. I started 55 and I'm 69 in a month. And I've never felt better. Uh, what's your advice to Bob 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? I remember there are a lot of Bobs like you and I, and Bob and Marys and Janes and all of us that we've been taught a story that maybe's led us down this path that we've had suffering and we're going to the people that are supposed to be helping us, but it's not happening.
Well, what I would say to everybody, whether it be myself in the past or somebody listening to this, is just get started. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. 2 years ago, I started a Get 1% Better campaign at the advice of Coach Bronson, who I listen to regularly. And he gave me full permission to steal his Get 1% Better saying. And I started off, I walked down to the corner and back. And it took me almost 5 minutes to get there. This morning, because I wanted to get a walk in before you and I sat down to talk, I went out and walked for almost 2 miles. And it was no time, took no time at all. It's 15 degrees outside. And I like to walk no matter what the weather is. So my advice is just get started and concentrate on getting just 1% better. If you can do something today, even if it's just when you walk down to your mailbox, take 1 lap around your mailbox before you grab the mail and go back into the house, that little bit of extra over the long run will add up to huge gains. But you can't compare yourself to myself or Dr. Kiltz or anybody else because everybody's progress is different. But you won't make any progress if you don't get started.
It's just simple. And tell us, you mentioned Dr. Berry and Ferrigno and also Bronson Dant, who we actually had on yesterday. Another amazing guy sharing. Who else do you think would be good for those to take a look at and go follow?
Everybody. If you're looking for doctors, yourself, Dr. Berry, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker, who is a beast of a man, by the way. But also, if you're looking for the more nerdy stuff, people that get down into the weeds a little bit more of the technical stuff, Dr. Jason Fung is excellent. And Dr. Paul Mason is excellent. Dr. Seafried. There are just so many of them. But if you're looking for average, everyday people to listen to, people like Larry and Cassie over at Carnivore Quest and Dante Ferrigno at Ferrigno's Freedom, and the list just goes on and on and on. There are, if you type carnivore diet into the search bar, you're going to see way more options than you can ever watch in a day. And I think they're all important. You get the view of a doctor coming at it from this angle, the views that you have coming at it from your fertility background, the view that Dr. Berry has coming from his background, plus all of the individual stories of people who you have interviewed and Dave Mack over in Japan has interviewed.
Yeah.
there are so many different angles. And if you're just getting started, I would suggest watch everybody, because what works for me may not work for you. But I may say one little thing that resonates with you, and you write that down on your list. And then Dr. Kiltz may say something, and you write that down. And before you know it, you've got a list of 8 or 10 or 15 people that can help you by watching their videos form the proper human diet that's going to work for you.
Any particular stories on your journey that you haven't shared yet that might be sort of inspiring for others?
Well, you know, I have said that I was sitting in my trailer waiting to die. I didn't realize how badly my mental state had become, because that's a process that happens over decades. You slowly sink away and sink away. But then when I decided to throw away my statins, before I even started the carnivore diet, I threw away my statins a week before. And between that and coming back, getting carnivore in my system, getting all of the poisons of all of my prescriptions out of my system, I realized how badly my mental health had been affected by all of that. And I don't like to think about that time, because I was really, really close to just checking out and not caring.
Yeah.
But now that I'm in this place, and I can see back to that time and remember how I felt then to how I feel now, it's just night and day. And if you had asked me 2.5 years ago, how's your mental state? I would have said, oh, I'm perfectly fine. I'm crippled. I can't walk. I can barely stand up. But I'm fine mentally. Well, now that I'm 2.5 years removed, I can tell you I was not mentally fine. And that's the thing that happens to people. You don't realize you're getting into that bad mental space until you're so far into it that you can't see it.
We in standard medicine, or any medicine, don't see the connection between the diet that we're recommending and the lifestyle we're kind of pushing, and the drugs that are affecting our mental state, which I've too have been depressed and anxious and didn't know which way to go, and was near that place at one time. And it was actually my patients who shared with me the dietary change, that they were getting pregnant on it. And I'd already kind of been at that time digging into meditation and prayer and visualization and exercise. And I found paleo, and then I got better in keto, better than that, and then carnivore. And I was online, and our information today is by listening and learning from people like yourself. And I think these stories are important. And how many of us are sitting just searching for an answer? And where's medicine going, do you think? What can we do that we can wake us up in the medical profession to be open to these changes?
I wish I had a really good answer for that. I think you have to wake doctors up one doctor at a time.
Yeah.
My cardiologist has, since I last saw him, has dropped about 40 pounds, because he has seen what happened with me and is convinced. He's not carnivore, but he is keto. And I don't think there's a good answer. The best way, though, is for everybody to just keep telling their stories, keep sharing. As I say so many times in my videos, because I record a video almost every day,
Wow.
and almost nobody watches. But if I can reach one person, if I can find one person that my story resonates with, and they can avoid the 58 years of misery that was my life, if they can start today and have a better life, then all of the hassle and pain of going through what I went through will be worthwhile, because I believe we're the sum of our experiences. If I hadn't gone through what I went through to get to this point in time, I wouldn't have a big carnivore story to tell. But now that I'm here, and while I'm not as elder as you are, I am still very elder at almost 62. And I'm hoping that if people can see, hey, there's a guy that was almost 60 when he started.
Dr. Rob Kiltz, another beautiful, spectacular day. And I just want to send thanks to all of those for watching the newest episode of Carnivore Conversations. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, and other streaming platforms to gain access to the full 1 hour episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more to come. God bless.